This is Dabu 7. And when the grid goes down, you better be ready. Because an EMP or a Carrington type of event from the sun could cripple the United States infrastructure in a heartbeat. And it looks like that would really be the key thing for any country that wants to cripple us to do. We have Russia and China both on record saying we don't have to go tit for tat with the United States. We just have to hit them one time. It's known. Trump has stated he wants to roll out this golden dome of missiles and hypersonic defensive weapons that can stop anything from hitting any cities within the United States. But what this dome would do is it would intercept anything that's above the United States coming in to try to strike a city. The dome would intercept these bombs at an altitude roughly right where an EMP, if detonated, would cause the most damage. You can see on the left here, if they launched one, say from Canada, or it came in from somewhere else, and it got over the United States, all they would have to do is detonate it at this level. And if Trump has a whole system designed to detonate any weapon at that height, 20, 30,000 feet, it's going to cause an effect like a hemp or an EMP. So there's two main things that could do this. The sun in a Carrington event, or a weapon, a nuclear detonation that takes place above the area. And again, they just got to get it up there. It has to be shot down by the United States, or it's going to continue on and hit a city. If not, so it has to detonate at a high altitude. We have not witnessed this out there anywhere else. The hypersonics that are being used on Israel and then fired back at Iran, none of them had nukes on them. None of them were detonated a nuke at 30,000 feet up in the sky. We haven't seen this in modern times yet. It only takes one shot. And the last time this government decided to do a commission on this, the commission came back and said, oh yeah, within 6 months, like 90% of the population would be dead. Decided to do a commission on this. The commission came back and said, oh yeah, within 6 months, like 90% of the population would be dead. So, talk about a reset and resetting everything. In this move, if pulled off, it would position China to leapfrog forward. And in this downtime, while America's down and in the dark, this is when China would advance on the world stage. It would truly become a multipolar world order. And they would have extreme strength and might in this move. Now, the world's such a stage that after an event like this, I could see Russia and China and everyone trying to send supplies for help, to try to look like they're good guys. It had nothing to do with it. Remember, North Korea and their Shining Star satellites are a number one threat because they don't care to use them. And it seems they've been set up, to be a bad guy for a reason. In the end, if it goes down, they could take the lick. They could take a nuclear strike in response to this. That's even actually prophesied. Either way, it's all positioned in a setup to me, just like some towers being laced with explosives. This isn't good. This will bring in the downfall of America if it ever did happen. Big time. It would decimate everything, and what America would look like on the other side of an event like this would be totally different. The elites are fully prepared. America, not at all. But this is one of many events that could happen. Economically, I would be watching everything with your money in the banks. If the lights don't go out by then, well, the lights going out will take down the banks. It will take down everything. No one will be able to access anything. So, for what it's worth, some updated information here I'll leave in a link below. Join me for the live streams where I talk about this in greater detail, going live Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern, right here on Dabu 77. Have a plan.
Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises and glory and honor that's due to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakakwadash. Double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone and rule well. Peace and blessings and salutations to the hopeful elect. Noise in the gospel abroad, lifting up the standard of Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, wherever it may be. This is another lesson through the Spirit. That was from Dabu 7, as you can hear, going into an EMP strike or a possible attack over America from the likings of Russia, China, possible Iran. In most cases, most people speculate that if that did happen, which the scriptures go into an event of darkness happening to Egypt, happened to ancient Egypt, and the scriptures goes into how modern Egypt will be smitten with plagues as well. But most people think, in most cases, that it would be an attack from your own government, because we know that Esau, he has what they call Hegelian dialectus, which is pressure from above, pressure from beneath, and problem, reaction, solution, which goes into order out of chaos. So with AI on the horizon and the grid vulnerabilities, and America's not really investing in an infrastructure, but yet they're developing full-scale wars in these different countries like Venezuela, and NATO behind the attacks in Ukraine. They have their hand full, and they're not really tending to their society or their people, because at the end of the day, it's their job to harbor resources, man. All right, but the scriptures goes into an event that will take place that will cause everything to collapse, man. And through the Spirit, that Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai will cause Esau on the left-hand side to make certain moves to bring in his new world order, which is not going to come to full completion. But now anything is possible. 2026 is on a year of on a horizon, and we believe 2026 is going to make 2025 look like a walk in the park. And 25 was brutal by far. 24 was brutal. So let's see. But anyway, it says, as AI booms, U.S. ignores one threat that could turn everything off, which this is an article by Zero Hedge. But it says here, we are now well past done in the age of artificial intelligence, which is AI. But according to a recent survey, Pew Research Center, 62% of respondents said that they interact with AI at least several times a week. It says nearly every company in the U.S. is now urgently evaluating the ways in which AI can be deployed to lower costs. Because remember, these government bodies, they don't want AI regulated, because when it's not regulated, that means that it can become its own superpower with no provision, with no security parameters on it. Though there will be, limits to certain things, but ideally Esau wants to control everything, man. Like if you go into that new show called Welcome to Dairy, Esau was looking for the deity It, which possessed Pennywise the clown. Basically, he was looking for it to weaponize it, just like a devil. He wanted to weaponize a supernatural entity, and it's the same thing with AI. Okay, his whole ideal is to weaponize it and use it to what he seems fit. Because when you go into the movie Mission Impossible, The Final Reckoning, and the one before that, basically was about controlling a super weapon, man. All right, which both movies were good. But it says here, nearly every company in the U.S. is now urgently evaluating ways in which AI can be deployed to lower costs, to improve products and services, and ultimately to increase profits. But some, such as Elon Musk, are predicting AI and robots will generate such abundance that in 10 to 20 years, work will become optional and money irrelevant. Okay? And this is ultimate control. So in order to get this thing, they're going to collapse societies, collapse corporations, overly fund the private sector, and these government bodies will be the opposing forces to the people. So EMP is very possible, and of course they will blame it on China, Russia, Iran, the Pakistanians, whoever they can put the blame on for something that they did, they would definitely, do that, because that's how Esau gets down. But for prophecy's sake, hey, this is not off the table. But it reads, hundreds of billions of dollars are being poured into building new data centers, which that's what they're talking about, why energy costs are so high now, because of the new data centers they're building up. And they stated that the data centers can literally be ran by 4, 5 to 6 people, and it'll do the rest of the work. It will pretty much manage itself, But you're building up these big super centers. I'm talking about thousands of square footage of super centers harboring AI. All right, and they already did the groundwork on a lot of these, like going back into like the Carolinas and the Palisades and these different states and cities that was hit by these storms that we've had within the last year. So data centers are being erected in these fallen places. That's why it says hundreds of billions of dollars are being poured into building new data centers to house the computers to meet expected demand as AI becomes ubiquitous, not just in the United States, but around the world. It says some sees a 25% growth in U.S. electricity demand over the next 5 years as these data centers become online, and predict consumer electricity prices will go up at least 40% too, as if we're not already paying high prices. But it says our economy, our money, our livelihoods, our lives are increasingly virtually and online, and our dependence on electricity and access to data processing cannot be overstated. But just over 140 years since the commercialization of electricity, just 75 years after the first commercial computer was introduced, and just over 30 years since the internet was open to the public, human civilization in the U.S. and much of the world depends on the continuous flow of electrons through circuits. So, an EMP attack will bring this country to ruin overnight, right? Because most people, they're locked into the phones, the social media. A lot of people do work online. A lot of people work on computers. Cars, they got computers down. These planes, which is supposed to be EMP proof, they're equipped with processing gigs and so forth. Video games. People gonna bug out if they can't get on Snapchat or TikTok or Facebook or X, Instagram. They can't play their video games. People can't go to work. Essentially, people can't get their money out the bank. People gonna start to lose it. Okay, and the scriptures goes into an event like this. All right. So this is the book of Exodus 10 and 21. Now, you go to Second Esdras, it says that the plagues that hit Egypt will hit this modern day Egypt, which is aka Babylon the Great, America. So Exodus 10 and 21, it says, and Yahweh said unto Moses, stretch out thy hand towards heaven, because Moses had spiritual power. It says that there may be darkness over the land of Egypt, even darkness which may be felt, okay? And that's gonna dark that's so horrific to the point that you couldn't even see your hand before your face. That's how dark it was. And that was like a supernatural darkness. It wasn't just like a typical blackout, but it was just like a supernatural darkness, because when you go into Wisdom of Solomon 17, it goes into that night when the Most High plagued them with evil angels, man. Okay, have you brothers ever been in a room so dark to the point you felt something around you? I give the account of when I was doing indoor construction at a hospital, and we was in a decommissioned building, and some of the corridors, they were just pitch black. Like it's just like you couldn't even you couldn't even feel the bottom half of your body walking through it. That's how thick the darkness is, because there's a spirit on that, man. So when it happens to this Egypt, just imagine, when the grid goes down and a mass death and shooting and chaos, and the Lord, he splits the veil between the third and fourth dimension, which is the spiritual world. There's gonna be it's gonna be a lot of crazy stuff happening, a lot of cosmic activity, because America's a haunted place any goddamn way, because of the mass graves of the Gadites, Reubenites, and just Israelites in general. There's a lot of negative energy just in this landmass alone. So it's easy to see this come to pass. And Esau experiencing with what do you call what's that shit he was using, the hydro, what is it called, the hydro something collider, when he splits the atoms faster than the speed of light, and he opens up these wormholes and these portals, and he's extracting certain energies from different dimensions and so forth, and he's harboring with nature, man. Okay, and they showed you that in that movie Stranger Things, when they was opening up the portal to the upside down, which is basically a parallel dimension. That's what Esau he's experiencing it with, is CERN. They've been out of the news for some time, but start looking back into CERN, man, because they're definitely doing something. Okay, time is speeding up, things are happening. But it reads, it says, Moses stretched forth his hand towards heaven, and there was a darkness in all the land of Egypt 3 days. Yeah, and that was probably like the longest 3 days those Egyptians had ever experienced. And they saw not another, Neither rose any from his place for 3 days, but all the children of Israel had light in their dwelling places. Okay, so that's the story on that. So going back, it says, what if AI, the computers, indeed all electricity and electric circuits are suddenly turned off? Okay, because we know that this is going to be something that's by design. Okay, Esau can hit the button and shut the grid down, and of course he will blame Russia, or a foreign country could come and donate a bomb or some type of strike over America's infrastructure, and the grid can go down, which means no water, no power, because all the water pumps now are being funneled through electricity, man. Okay, you're not using actual wells and streams anymore. Everything is being done off the grid. Okay, same thing with your utilities, your gas bill, your light bills, your water bills. Once that shuts down, it's a wrap. And if you live in a city and these plants shut down, these processing plants and these water reclamation plants that cleans the bio out of the water and all this other stuff, it's gonna be horrible, man. You know, no trash is being picked up for months at a time, which is gonna generate, roadkill. It's gonna generate animals, wild animals, cannibalism. I mean, it's gonna be bad out here, man. Like I Am Legend, scriptures goes into it. But it says here, what happens if the continuous flow of electrons through circuits upon which our civilization increasingly depends just ends? And a lot of people are going to just go crazy because, for one day, they mean like, okay, well, maybe it's just an outage. But after a couple of hours, people are going to bug out. And they showed that a couple of years ago when they had those outages with T-Mobile and then Instagram was down, Facebook was down. A lot of these women, man, they didn't know what to do because they couldn't sell that poon no more, because everybody has, you have what they call constant dopamine hits when everybody is scrolling on a phone and they're looking at something to get off one, and their minds are all fried, man. So they don't know how to exist without this technology, which this be the best thing in the world if this shit happens, bro, because, hey, you become back one with nature, It says, but how could this happen? Wires and circuits are being designed to carry out a certain voltage and amperage. Volts measures pressures on electrons, and amps measure the volumes or flow of electrons. But when volts or amps are too high for the wire or circuits, it overheats, melts, or catches fire. So example, when lightning strikes an electronic device, the wires on the device act as an antenna and pick up the electric charge from the lightning, which caused the voltage on the wire to surge millions of times higher than a typical voltage. So basically, it'll burn out. It says lightning rods invented by Ben Franklin in 1753, which Jake invented that. All right, the devil always takes credit for what we do. And Faraday cages, invented by Michael Faraday in 1836, have long been used to protect structures and electronic devices from the regularity and naturally occurring risk of lightning and ambient electromagnetic waves from the sun and other sources by redirecting the electricity caused by these phenomena. Okay, so they're basically breaking down on what will happen if this happen. Anyway, it says, so how might the entire flow of electricity upon our civilization depends ever just be turned off? It says there are two types of relatively low probability events, which that's not really a low probability. This is a more than likely to come to pass. All right, even if it ain't for months, they can experiment with the shit for weeks and people go crazy. But something is going to happen there. A lot of these things are going to happen simultaneously. But there are two types of relatively low probability events that could cause a massive electromagnetic pulse directing millions of volts into wires, thereby destroying unprotected electronic devices in the U.S. infrastructure, which that would be a justification of them using supercomputers and saying, well, look, we need to build back a stronger infrastructure because the current technology we have is too outdated. And they've been saying that the grid has been weak for some time. It's been overloaded, But if you didn't require everybody to be on a goddamn grid, you wouldn't have this problem, man. If you allow people to sustain their own energy and have their own farms and grow their own food and crops and so forth and have their own business dealings, then you wouldn't have to worry about no fucking EMP. But see, you're such a devil to the point you create the situation that's volatile for everybody to the point you even make yourself vulnerable. All right, that's why the scriptures go into unwise king destroyed his people. Okay, Esau is just a dumbass at the end of the day. All right, but 2 Esdras 15:1. Behold, speak thou in the ears of my people the words of prophecy which I will put in thy mouth, says the Lord. Prophecy means to say before. It says, and cause them to be written in paper, for they are faithful and true. So these things are true. So according to the scriptures, it will happen. Fear not the imaginations against thee, and let not the incredulity of them that trouble thee speak against thee. For all the unfaithful should die and the unfaithful. But behold, says Yahweh, I will bring plagues upon the world, sword, famine, death, and destruction. And death is going to be a major thing, because they said that 90% of the population would be dead in 6 months, which, that's up for debate, because we understand that the Lord have other dealings, or he have other means of destruction for these people. Okay. I don't see people. I see a lot of people being destroyed as far as if this did happen, but I don't see this as being a primary culprit of the Lord using to take these fucking people out, bro. Because there's a million ways to die, and a billion ways to die according to Yahweh Shai. All right, because you got to remember the missiles will hit this place. So you got to understand that these articles are being written from a standpoint of the Edomite, that they believe that America is not going to be destroyed, even though it may be disintegrated as a superpower. But they don't really see in America being destroyed, because this will come in tandem with everything else, for plagues, famine, pestilence, economic collapse. All these things will happen simultaneously. You see, so it ain't going to just be one big blackout for 3 years and the world going to go to shit. No, man, blackouts and everything in the midst of it is going to cause the world to go to shit. All right, because not only here, it's going to happen in different parts of the world too. But let's just say if the grid shut down for a total of 2 months, 60 days, right? Yeah, a lot of people would die, but a lot of people would survive too, because, people, survival skills, we're going to be robbing and looting, and people going to find ways to survive. But the vulnerable, like the children and, Keisha and the elderly, I can see them, dying in record numbers. But the young men, that's of notable stature, they may pull through. And the elect, we're going to be cool regardless. We're going to be straight. So it is what it is. Not really worried about it. But anyway, it says, for wickedness have exceedingly polluted the whole earth, and their hurtful works are fulfilled. So therefore, it says the Lord, I will hold my tongue no more as touching their wickedness, which they profanely commit, neither would I suffer them in those things which they wickedly exercise themselves. But behold, the innocent and righteous blood cried unto me, and the souls of the just complain continually. Yeah, okay, we're complaining to the Yahweh Shai that we're under an unjust ruler. Okay, we're complaining to the Heavenly Father that we want the kingdom, and that we want to finally get up out of this captivity, man, and live our lives, bro. Because this ain't it. Being under this devil, it's not it. Okay. But it says here, the first massive solar event, called the Carrington event, after the astronomer who observed the largest geomagnetic storm ever, recorded in 1959. It says a storm hundreds of times larger than typical solar storms that destroyed telegraph systems in Britain and U.S. Remember this Northern Lights shit they had maybe about a couple of weeks ago. Matter of fact, that was about a month ago. I think that's around like maybe October, November. But it says the second in creation of electromagnetic pulses by donating a nuclear device high in the atmosphere above the U.S. called a HEMP, or high altitude electromagnetic pulse, which can be used from different societies or different countries waging war in America, man. So the Russians, the Koreans, the Iranians, the Chinese, etc., their enemies. But while no one knows of the odds of either event occurring in the next 10 years, some have put the odds for each at 10 to 12%. But in any event, the risk is non-trivial, and the consequences to life in the United States of either event continue to grow every day as our reliance on AI, computers, robots, and electricity that makes it all possible grows, right? Because as I said, they're going to do something to trigger the event so they can be justified on moving forward with the New World Order. So something of black swan nobility will be, okay? But it says our government formed a commission to assess this risk in 2001, which reported in 2008 that 90% of Americans will likely be dead in 6 months after the hemp attack on the U.S. because our modern civilization operates as systems of systems, but all the systems require electricity and electronic components to function. And because these people put their trust in Esau, this is why. Hold on. Scriptures go into what? How do I quote it? The scriptures goes into a unfaithful guy, if I'm not mistaken. I think it goes into a. Fuck, I can't quote the scripture. Salakia. I'm still tired, man. I woke up a little earlier than what I anticipated. But let's go to Isaiah 24. Oh, because the scriptures go into never trust thy enemy. So Esau has the people right where he wants them. But anyway, this is the book of Isaiah 24. And I'm going to start at verses 3. And it reads, and it says, and the land should be utterly empty and utterly spoiled. Okay, spoiled. When you go into spoiled, that goes into like possessions and like spoils of war. Oh, come on. Spoils of war. They call it booty, right? Like our women, they're spoils of war, meaning they've been conquered, they've been taken, they've been beat, they've been taken down. Okay, so this society, when you spoil something, means that you're taking a possession and you ruin it. But it should be utterly empty and utterly spoiled. It says, for the Lord have spoken this word. But the earth mourned and faded away, and the world language and faded away, and the haughty people of the earth do languish, right? The proud behavior. And this will be a fitting punishment to the inhabitants of Babylon, especially you cloud chasers and you women. Because women, they profit the most off this society, off this, what they call metropolis, which means mother city. Because the cities are typically built for the convenience of women and children. But it says the earth is also defiled under the inhabitants thereof, because they have transgressed the laws, changed the ordinance, broken the everlasting covenant. Therefore have the curse devoured the earth, and they that dwell therein are desolate, and therefore the inhabitants of the earth are burnt, and few men left, man. Okay? So, here, it says Americans are even more dependent on electricity today than we were 17 years ago, and our dependence on electricity will go even deeper as we integrate AI into our lives, man. Let me see. Yep. And it reads, it says, note this regarding that triggering the hemp is actually the easiest type of nuclear attack a rogue state or actor could launch against us, because a missile only has to go up and explode over the U.S. and does not have to be targeted back to a particular location on Earth, as it's relatively clean and that radiation fallout to the ground is lower, but the higher the bomb is detonated. But some scholars believe that hemp weapons are central to China's nuclear and cyber strategy against the U.S., so they plan on cutting the lights out. But it says it's uncomfortable to consider this risk, and it's human nature to sometimes ignore small risks with major consequences. But a rational policymaker should increase investments to mitigate the risk as expected costs increase. But as we are doing this, how many of the new massive data centers are incorporating protections against EMP in their design and construction? It says as utilities build new power plants and upgrading aging unprotected grid, are they planning to designing to mitigate the EMP risk? And what of our transportation equipment and infrastructure? Because transportation banks, okay, institutions will be down overnight. This happens, you ain't getting your money out the bank. Forget about it, you know. But it says last March, President Trump ordered by creation of the National Resilience Strategy that by July and a national critical infrastructure policy by October to address risks such as these, but neither followed up strategy nor the policy contemplated by the order, which appears to have been published. But while empowering states and localities to deal with these risks may be efficient, but it's unclear whether states are serious taking on this risk either. But Aesop's fable of the wild boar and the fox questions why the boar sharpens its tusk, and the boar replies, it would be foolish not to get ready when you can for what comes. But I fear we are not given this well-known, truly existential, but oft ignored risk, the attention, planning, oversight, and investment it deserves as electric infrastructure spends soaring over the pursuit of AI. So, anyways, you know, the people are in gross darkness as we're reading. All right. It says the new wine wanted, the vine language, and all the merry-hearted do sigh. Yeah, people are going to be in a broken spirit because then their lives are going to pretty much be disrupted instantly when they can't use these little devices they call phones. And it says here, the mirth of tabrets ceased, and the noise of them that rejoiceth, and the joy of the harp ceased, and they should not drink wine with the song. Strong drink should be bitter to them that drink it. Okay, yeah, because the wine is poisonous. But in that day, people are gonna be drinking for the consumption to be comforted, but that's not gonna work. But the city of confusion is broken down. Every house is shut up, that no man may come in. Okay, which goes into a shutdown in your society. Because as we mentioned, these people, they're not paying attention to what the hell is getting ready to come on them, man. Okay, so Isaiah 60:1, arise and shine, for thy light is come, and the glory of the Lord is risen upon thee, which is his truth, the elect. For behold, the darkness shall cover the earth, and gross darkness the people, but the Lord shall rise upon thee, and his glory shall be seen upon thee. Yeah, okay, and that's twofold, because in retrospect, that's happening now because we're waking up into this wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, and we have the truth of Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai immersed in our spirit. But when the physical darkness come, the men of the Lord will be a light unto those that seek Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai. And I believe that the Lord is going to give us a special spirit that's going to stand out in the midst of these people, man, and they're going to know something that's different. All right? Don't ask me how or how it's going to look. I don't know. Okay? But the scriptures say that the Lord is going to exalt us in that day. So, the Lord, he's going to make things happen. Okay? Because these people, they cooked. They're not paying attention. It's book of Matthew 24:37. It says, but as in the days of Noah were, so shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. Okay, for in the days that they were before the flood, they were eating and drinking, marrying and giving into marriage until the day that Noah entered the ark, and knew not of the flood, and took them all away. So shall also the coming of the Son of Man be. So, like I said, the average person ain't talking about what if the grid goes down. What's going to happen if an EMP strike hit. The average chick is worried about getting likes on Instagram. The average nigga is worried about who he can commit adultery with and what rap contract he can sign. Okay, they're not focused on this truth. They're not focusing on the what if event. And not even what if. They're not focused on the event. Okay? So, verse 9, it says, and therefore says the Lord, I will surely avenge them and receive unto me all the innocent blood from among them. But behold, my people is led as a flock to the slaughter, and I will not suffer them now to dwell in the land of Egypt. But I will bring them with a mighty hand and with a stretched out arm, and I will smite Egypt with plagues as before, and will destroy all the land thereof. And that's going to be when the missiles hit. It says, Egypt shall mourn, which is America, and the foundation of it should be smitten with the plague and punishment that Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai should bring upon it. And going into these blackouts, and they that till the ground shall mourn, for their seed shall fail through the blasting and hell and with the fearful consolation. But woe to the world and them that dwell therein. It says, for their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another with swords in their hand. And this is civil war, because when the grid goes down, for weeks perhaps, you better believe that anarchy will be in the streets to follow. That's a given. People going to lose it. It says, for there should be sedition among men, invading one another, and they should not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions will stand in their power. Yeah, people just not going to give a fuck. They just going to say, you know what, man, I ain't worried about no fucking President Trump. I ain't worried about no goddamn police. We going to do what the hell we want to do. And people are in that spirit now. All right? So you cops, man, you think you going to call the people. They just going to steamroll right over you. Because people are fed up, bro. And it says that a man should desire to go into a city and should not be able, for because of their pride, the city should be troubled, the house should be destroyed, men should be afraid, and a man should have no pity upon his neighbor, but should destroy their houses with the sword and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and great tribulation. And if a great shutdown happened, then you better believe that 2nd Esdras 15 is going to hop off the pages. All right, but anyway, I'm going to end it, giving all praises and glory and honor that's due to Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, Lord's will. You were edified. Until the next lesson. Shalom.